Now, we're going to be talking about this tool here, which you will find on just about every active panel from version 4 onwards. It's our annotator tool, and it is a very, very simple to use tool that can do a lot of things. What I'm going to do now is play you a video that shows you how to use it and gives you an example of that. So stand by and I will hit the share button. All right, Claire, can you let me know if that's on everyone's screens, please?
Yes, it is.
All righty, I am gonna hit play. Thank you. Let's have a look at the annotation tools on the Promethean Active panel. First up, I want to talk about annotating just for a second. So if we just take the example here of annotating text, there's 4 fairly common ways to annotate text. Highlight and underline, that's a pretty popular one. Comment, so leave a comment on a section or a response. We can go into some more in-depth paraphrasing or summarizing, or you can go really into something and write a descriptive outline. Now, not all of these are appropriate for our on-screen annotator, but what we have here, we could probably safely say that these two here belong with the whiteboard. If you're going to, start to change big chunks of text into smaller chunks of text, that's something you would want to do with the endless canvas of the whiteboard. But if you wanted to quickly highlight something, underline something, drop a little comment on top of something, this is where the annotation tools on the Promethean panel work really, really well. All right, let's move on to the next slide here. Now, there are quite a few things good annotations will do. 1, they will show the main ideas, okay? They will clearly identify where important ideas are. So if you're literally looking at a document, you can find the bits you want quickly. They will, actually let's do this one, they will trace the development of ideas or arguments so you can start to see where things begin in a document and how they progress. And you can introduce thoughts from readers and viewers with good annotations. And personally, I'm just going to add one more up there. I think it's a pretty important one. I'm going to write it here in black. And it's a basic one, but I think it's important. The good thing about annotating is it will point to, you guessed it, it will point to stuff. And if you're pointing to things or content or using annotations to draw your student's eye, that can be a pretty powerful tool as well. So let's just shrink these down a little bit. Pinch and zoom, pinch and zoom, pinch and zoom. Now I'm going to bring up the annotation tool on this panel just so we can have a quick look at it. I'm going to swipe in and I'm going to tap on the annotate button. Now if you're on a slightly older Promethean panel, you might be tapping on your pink button and then opening up your annotation tool from there. I will go into that in some more detail in the next little video. Okay, cool. So we've got roughly 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 common uses of annotations. And if you have a look at this, the Promethean Annotator has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 colors. It also has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 highlighters. So not only does it give you an ability to point to stuff, trace an idea, introduce thoughts, or just show me where stuff is, we can actually introduce, if you want to, if you're that kind of teacher, you can introduce color into your wayfaring through a document. So we could actually associate the color blue with main ideas and green with the reader or the viewer's thoughts and impressions. Hopefully you're getting the idea there, but there are a few things that work quite well with the annotator here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to minimize my whiteboard once I hide my annotations. I'm going to minimize my whiteboard there. And I'm just going to bring up a piece of content on the screen so we can have something to look at. And I'm going to bring up FET here, which is a great visualization app, really powerful. And I'm just going to show you how the annotator works here. And you've tapped on a few buttons here. You're probably starting to pick it up. There's not an awful lot to it. So the minute you open up the annotator, it loads and you're in annotation mode. So in this example, I can show you here that these are torches. What do torches do? They project light. And I can make some annotations here really quickly. I can also tap on the highlighter and choose a different color here, and I can make some more marks on the content. Now, if I select a tool and then tap it again, I can choose a different width. So I can go for a very fine highlighter like this, or I can tap on it again and choose a very wide one here. Now that's handy because sometimes if you're highlighting text, you want a nice thick highlighter. And a nice thing about the highlighters too is you can actually layer them up with a bit of flow and therefore increase their density, which is super nice. Let me press on this little rectangular button here. It looks like a little eraser with a screen behind it. That takes all the annotations off the screen at once in one quick go. If I use these little buttons here, the two arrows, they're my time travel devices, so I can actually go forwards and backwards through time on my annotator as well, which is really cool. If I bring some content back up on the screen here, you will see that I can also grab the eraser and I can erase with one finger, or I can use multi-touch on the panel and scrub content away as well. If I'm on a titanium panel or other panels that support palm erase, what I can do is I can put my whole hand on the glass and I can also erase my annotator too, just like I can in the whiteboard. So you've got a few options there to work with the annotator. Now, one of my favorite tools with the annotator here is this little eyeball. And let me put some content up on the screen here. Let's go fairly basic. We'll go, this is red. That pen is way too thick. Let's slim it down a bit. Red. Let's go green. And let's go blue. Now, I don't want to give you a lesson here on color. Actually, I would really like to give you a lesson here on color and light, because I think we all know that primary colors, when you're painting or mixing colors in a traditional sense, you know what they are and you know how they mix together, and you know how you make green. You add a bit of blue and you add a bit of yellow, and that equals green. However, when you're mixing the light, the colors don't play by the same rules. There's a different set of primary colors, and as they mix together, it gets different. So anyway, I find this activity plus the annotator really fun. So let me show you around here. So we've got some sliders which will emit light, and then we've got a few different controls we can bop around with. So I'm going to leave those notes up there, and I'm going to tap on the eyeball. Now when I touch the screen, you can see here that I've got touch control back over the panel. Whereas if my eyeball is unchecked, I am in writing mode here. So we can bounce between these two things for good effect. So let me just tap those annotations off. They're still there, they're just hidden. And let's see what happens if we add a lot of blue with a lot of green. And if we have a look up here, you will see that the subject's eye here is interpreting that as cyan, which is really cool, that these colors mix in a different way when you're talking with light. Now, I'm not going to go into this any further. I'm just going to go in a tiny bit, but I'm going to tap on the eyeball one more time. Now, if we've got blue and we've got green and they mix together to make cyan, I'd love to see what your guess is to see what happens when we mix in a whole heap of red. All right, have a think about it. Let me know in the comments, whatever. Let's see. Let's slide this slider up to see what color we get. You actually get white. If you mix in all three primary colors of light, you're going to get white, which is super cool. Incidentally, if you mix red and blue together, you get magenta. If you take all of the colors out, you're going to get black. And last question, what do you think is if you mix about half of the intensity of each light into this mix? Let's try it out. Let's go half blue, let's go half green, interesting color, and let's go half red. You actually get gray, which is pretty cool. And you know, if you're going to take any sort of photography lesson away from this, know that with 3 colored lights, you can get all your primary colors, all your secondary colors, and you can also get a black background, a gray background, and a white background, just with 3 lights and 3 different colors of cellophane. Alrighty, I think we're back. We are back. All right. How'd we go in the chat? Did we get some responses?
We did. So we did have, most of the questions were about the recordings, which I think we've answered in the chat and put links up there. But if we haven't answered them, please do add another comment. And my little voice in here, I was just going to draw everybody's attention at the beginning of that clip. Ben was showing us the difference between the whiteboard, which we covered off last webinar, versus the Annotate. And essentially, if you're breaking it down, it's stuff you're going to want to keep. So for formative assessment purposes or note-taking purposes, you would chuck that into the whiteboard because you can annotate over top of it, and you've got a lot of different colors and a lot of different pens, and you put backgrounds and things in the whiteboard. The annotation tool is primarily for those teacher moments when you're just modeling, or you're regrouping or refocusing on aspects or explaining concepts further. It's designed for the stuff you're going to chuck away. You don't need to keep it. Ben does show you later on, or explain later on, if you've gone down the avenue of annotating and then you think, oh, actually this would be great to keep, how you can do that. So that's coming up soon.
All right, cool. Well, if that is it, I will queue up the next video and attempt to, which I think will address a lot of those points, because you're right, Claire. Sometimes you think you're just going to make a little bit of a point, and then before you know it, you're just having a really good little learning moment. All right, so here we are. I'm just going to cue this clip up here, and this is just lots and lots of examples of things we've seen teachers do into the classroom that we think are fantastic. Can you see that, Claire?
Yep, we can.
All right, hitting play. G'day. So in this last video about the Promethean annotation tool, we're going to show you some clips we think show off the annotator in some creative ways. While you watch this, think about how you could swap out a piece of content for something you deliver in your classroom, and tweak the idea from there. These just designed to get your ideas flowing. G'day and welcome to this example. I've got on the left-hand side of my panel a Word document, and that has a development rubric in it. Effectively, you might be using that for marking, you might be looking at just to watch student development, and in this example I've got some student work next to it. Now for classrooms that are quite upfront with their students as to what they need to hit with what they need to submit, this is great because what I can do here as a teacher is draw a really obvious link. I can even tap it on and off again between the introduction and where it exists in the student's work. Obviously the main body's in the middle, the conclusion's at the end, and I've got a note here in orange that I can go through and look for keywords. So maybe we want to look at flippers, swimming. You see where we're going from here, and why this can be important is it's not actually affecting the student's work. It's overlaid over the top of it, so their work is still their work and your comments are still your comments, and there's a very clear delineation between there. It it's about feedback, not necessarily assessment, and that's a really nice way to learn. Now, if you do need to capture this, don't forget you can swipe in and tap the capture button, and that will capture a whole picture of what's on the screen here. And if you're on a pink dot panel, tap that pink button and hit that capture button too, and that will do that as well. Now, the last thing I'll say here is that some of our panels can do multiple apps on the screen at once. Titanium's Cobalts, that's one of their great features. Now, if your panel is a one app at a time kind of panel, that's fine. You can do this by getting the two pieces of content up onto your laptop screen and then screen sharing that content to the panel. That's a great way to do it. If you've got a Promethean Chrome box connected, that does more than two apps on the screen. You can do all the apps on the screen at once. Great device. There's lots of options there too. And if you need a hand, if you want to deliver something like this, but you're not quite sure how to do it with your panel, drop us a line and we will help. All right, in this example, we're going to use screen share in conjunction with the annotator. And this example is very close to home for me because it would happen every day in my classroom. And that would be a student would come in to the photography lab and say, I saw this epic photo on Instagram. How can I begin to create something like it? Now, the annotator is perfect for this for a couple of reasons. We've got obviously a way we can draw on a relationship here between light and shadow. So I'm going to use the highlighter tool for this, but I'm going to say all the lights we're going to sort of draw with a yellow highlighter. So if we look here, we see that the subject here, let's use blue for shadows, is dark here, and we know that light creates shadow. So we can see that there's a light coming in from the background here. Excuse me, let me swap back to the right color. But there's a light coming in here from the background, and that's creating a shadow here. So those two things tell us that there is likely a light source out here. Now we're also seeing that the cenotaph is lit up very, very nicely. So there's a light source coming in from out here. And there's also, if you look in there, there's a really harsh shadow, which means that tells us something about the light too. It's probably not the sun, it's probably not on a cloudy day. There's obviously some other clues out there, such as the whole background and everything else is in super shadow, means the sun's not out. But very quickly, I can take something that's still existing on the student's phone or iPad, and I can bring it up to the panel with screen mirroring, and we can create a whole lesson around it. And they haven't even emailed me the picture. Here's one technique you might actually want to bring popcorn for. And what I've got on the screen here is I'm using the annotation tool to look at cinematography and actually show you how some pretty popular rules of composition are being practically used in a movie trailer here. So it's a way that students can still watch the content but be mindful of the visual composition. This is just sort of that slight variation on the rule of thirds here, where everything's sort of tucked in more towards the center. Works really good with that sort of 16:9 ratio. But you could do golden spiral, standard 4/3, you know, all sorts of different composition rules. You can just draw them up freehand with the annotator. You can toggle them off and on if you wanted to pause a scene. Let's wait for something that looks quite cool, something like that. We can pop back into the annotator. Maybe we turn off the play controls, cool, and we can actually pull apart things like, when does the director and the cinematographer use the rules for great effect, and also when do they break the rules for great effect. All right, now in this example, I'm just going to bring up a document on the screen, and I'm opening up a Microsoft Word document directly on the panel. Microsoft Word, I love you, but I will do your feedback a little bit later. Now this is a document I've got in Microsoft Word here, which is great. Cool. And if I open up my toolbar by tapping on it, you will see that it's a good version of Microsoft Word. It doesn't have everything the desktop has, but it's got a lot of good things here. Now, I've got some student work here. It's not perfect. It's got a few spelling mistakes. Now, what I can do without actually impacting the student's work is swipe in, grab the annotator, and I'm not going to use a red pen. That's a little bit confrontational at this late hour, but I can use that highlighter to sort of read through and check out for a few little things we could get the learner to reconsider and work on too. Now, these annotations sit above the document and they don't exist beyond closing down the Annotations app unless you were to swipe in and hit that capture button. Then you keep the annotations. Now, just to change things up a little bit, I want you to think about using annotation tools that live within certain apps. Microsoft Word is one of those apps where you can literally annotate directly into the document and those annotations will bind and stick to it. To do that, you go to the draw menu, you can choose a tool, you can choose a pen or a highlighter, and you grab the draw tool, and then what we can do is we can highlight and we can make some notes. And if I grab the pen tool, look at all these colors I can pick from. Very, very cool. We can go in here and we can make some notes, which is excellent. You just have to be mindful that this is literally affecting the document. And once we exit it, those changes will be saved. And then if you open it for the next lesson, those changes will still be sitting there. So you've got the flexibility with the panel to have the changes sit above it or literally bake into the file. And I just wanted to point those out to you as well. Now, if your panel supports palm arrays and all those things, you should have that functionality with these onboard and I guess app-ified annotations too. For one last example on the annotator, I'm going to open up a pretty common format of a document directly onto the panel. That's a PDF. So I'm going to use Adobe Acrobat. And I've already preloaded a website which I have compressed into a PDF earlier. And it does do a couple of cool things. I've got to remember which button it is. I think it's, no, this one. Here. Yes, so if I tap on this button, it gives me the option to read as a continuous page, or do I want to go something like page by page? And all of a sudden here, if we're not just purely reading the text and we're looking at it from a page design point of view, this is cool. This is a cool way to look at a document. Now again, swipe in, grab the annotator, we can make all those sorts of changes. But Adobe PDF, Adobe Acrobat, lots of ways you can actually make your annotations stick to this document as well. And it's a good one to finish on because, there's a few more options. So if I tap the pen tool and I'm going to choose something like comment. Now, once you're in comment mode, you've got a highlighter which will allow you to, I'm highlighting away here, press and hold, highlight the text. Let's get some text down here, press and hold and highlight that. And as you can see, it's a totally different highlighting experience. It's not freehand, it's really, really attached to the text. We can also grab the pen tool, choose a different color, and this pen tool here acts a lot more like that free-handed highlighter I was looking for a minute ago. So if you want to go freehand, go the pen. If you want to literally highlight passages of text, grab the highlighter tool. And then if you want to leave some text, let me grab my old school Promethean Annotator. Those text tool there's are really, really good too. G'day, we are back. I think, am I back?
Yep, we're back.
Good. Thank you.
So what I love about Ben's videos is he always shows like a really great range of tools and things and gives you sort of the overview. And then I like to come along and just throw them under the bus and say, okay, that's all very well, but let's show people how to do X, Y, Z. So to throw you under the bus with a first live example, fingers crossed it's going to work on live TV. I think you have prepared a YouTube video for us.
I got your link and I have loaded it into the browser, and here it is. This is some sort of sports contest.
It is the Paralympics.
Beautiful.
Which we've just had the pleasure of watching. And so just to emphasize the fact that it isn't just the arts and things like that that the annotating tool is good for, although it's excellent for them. You know, I'm throwing Ben into a sports sciencey / physicsy type scenario and showing how he's just, he's brought a video up in YouTube on a web browser. So you've got the web browser on your panel. Ben's queued it up to the exact moment that we were after.
Just and he's going to
be able to annotate there.
Oh, nice.
There we go. And if we were looking at things like the body position, or we were looking at the angle of projection, or whatever it is that we might be looking at, there we go. We can annotate straight over that video. Now, to make that video move again, Ben, there's a toggle. So whilst the annotations are on, the video or the screen isn't live. You can't tap on it to get the video playing. You have to toggle off your annotations with the little eyeball. Once that eyeball's scratched out, you can press play. So just in case there was any confusion as to why your video wasn't playing, hopefully that sorts that out for you. Another example, Ben, for us is you brought up a PDF. So there's a number of ways we can get a PDF document to the panel. I'm going to hand over to you to explain that.
All right, cool. So you know, if you've got a USB stick and you like to USB stick things to the panel, more than welcome to. I've done put it on Google Drive and then move it across to the panel. So if I were to open up my Files app, which is just like a files manager, you can see here that I can sort through different categories of things. But the only one I'm interested in today is my Google Drive. And then the file I'm looking for is this inference document, isn't it, Claire?
It is indeed, because being a teacher.
And I will just open that in. That's cool. I was just going to say, sometimes you get a couple of options to open it up in, and it might be doing that because I've already got it opened up. We'll just see. There we go. So you can't open the same file twice, which is good with Google Drive. So you can't, you know, you've always got your version control. Anyway, here it is in PDF. I'll leave it to you to talk some more, Claire.
Thank you. So I always found that inference was one of the more complex or challenging reading comprehension skills to teach. So I cobbled together this from two different authors. On the left, I think we've got the text is actually from Sheena Cameron, and the graphic organizer there is from Alison Davies. And I love this graphic organizer for inference. So for this exact reason. So example here, I'm just wanting to model this to the kids. Ben's going to do the hard work. He's going to be highlighting those keywords or phrases. Thank you. And then adding them to our ladder. So he's finding all the clues that help us figure out what kind of character or who Fred really is as a character. So they're all things that are inferred by or implied by the author, but not exactly stated. And it all helps us to lead to the idea that, you know, Fred is a lonely old man whose wife's probably died, and so on. So again, just emphasizing this is a throwaway activity. It's just a modeling activity, perfect for the annotation tool. I wondered what that was going to say for a second.
My handwriting, sorry guys.
It's okay, all good. And thank you, Ben, for demonstrating how to get a PDF up onto the panel.
You're very welcome.
And our last example that I'm hoping for is if you can bring up our photo. So there's, again, a number of ways you can bring a photo or an image up onto the board. So I'm going to stop talking and let Ben talk you through how we got this one up.
Yeah, again, same old thing. I've got it in a place I'm familiar with, USB stick. This time it's Google Drive, but wherever it is, I've plugged it in or I've connected it with my username and password. And then I'm just going to use the Files app. Now, your panel may not have a Files app. It might have an Explorer app, or you might have downloaded a different file manager. We can help with all of that. But the default, the ones that ship are usually called Explorer or Files. Now, again, sort to my Google Drive, open up my drive. And I believe this photo here is the one we're going to look at. Here, because I've got lots of apps on my panel, it's going to ask me, do I want to open it in something else? I like to do a bit of photo editing, so sometimes I want to bounce between different things here. But this time I'm just going to open in the gallery, and I'm just going to say just this once. And here it is, through the internet onto the panel.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We're going to do junior maths here. We've gone on a shape hunt through the school. We've taken some photos, and Ben's going to demonstrate here how we might be either modelling or having a check-in to make sure that our kids actually understand the kind of shapes we're looking for, whether that's quadrilaterals, whether it is, I think if you go to the Tomokanga, Ben, the little archway there, we've got a pentagon.
Oh, yes, we do.
Yeah, awesome. And again, this would be a throwaway type thing. If I wanted to use this photo in a task that I'm going to keep for formative assessment purposes, or if I wanted to make my panel into a learning station for students to use during a lesson, what I would actually do is I would take that photo and I would put it into the whiteboard. So I'm going to ask Ben to do that just to illustrate this and also to recap a couple of things from last week.
No worries. So let me just turn my annotator off there. The easiest way to get something into the whiteboard is you get it onto the screen and you swipe in. Maybe if your panel's got a pink dot, tap that pink dot and then press the capture button. Now, if your panel will crop at this stage, great, feel free to. If it doesn't, it's just going to drop you right into the whiteboard app. But I'm just going to crop out my interface there, hit the open in whiteboard button, which will do exactly as advertised, and drop it into the whiteboard where I can then pinch and zoom it.
And I had Ben put one in here earlier to show or review things. So remember, this is if I want to keep this for assessment purposes or for note taking or for whatever, I would put the content into the whiteboard, and Ben's just going to flick on the dual user or the split screen button there, which is the two people side by side on the toolbar. And suddenly you've got two groups of students who are able to use different colors at the same time. You could have one image in there and two toolbars up, and that way the students can use different colors on the same image. But this was really just to bring us back to the beginning statement that Ben was making. You know, there are some tasks that you want your whiteboard for, and there are some tasks that you just want to going to want the annotation tool for.
All right, thank you, Claire. Very, very good. I guess it's with all of that, thank you for coming. We're going to stick around for questions for a little bit, and we'll go from there. Have we got someone in the chat? Does anyone have any feedback? We like to hear from people. Don't be shy. Let us know what you think. All right. Now, whilst you're having a think there and typing away, hopefully, I'm just going to put up my contact information there. If you have further questions that maybe you don't want to put in the chat, maybe you want me to deliver a file to you in a different way, anything like that, there's my email. You're more than welcome to get in touch there. Yeah, like I said, we had lots of contact from the last webinar, which was fantastic. We are on the lookout always for amazing teachers who are absolutely teaching at the cutting edge with their panels. So if you are one or you know one, let us know. We'd like to reward them and work with them too. So